Thinking in Systems, a Primer by Donella H. Meadows. Ever played with a slinky? You know, that simple coiled spring that practically comes alive in your hands. It flows like liquid metal between your palms, and if you're lucky, it'll walk itself down the stairs like it has a mind of its own. Picture this. You're holding one right now. It's sitting on your open palm, and you grab the top with your other hand. Then you pull the bottom hand away. What happens next? The slinky drops, then springs right back up. It bounces and bounces, dancing in midair, suspended from your fingers. Now here's the question. What made the slinky do that? You'd probably say, well, you did. You moved your hand. Fair enough. But here's the thing. If I did the exact same move with a cardboard box, the slinky came in, held it, grabbed it, pulled away, what would happen? Absolutely nothing. The box would just dangle there like a sad piece of cardboard. So let me ask you again, what really made the slinky bounce? Here's the beautiful truth. The bouncing was already inside the slinky. It was hidden in the coils, waiting to be released. Your hand didn't create the bounce. It just set it free. This simple idea, it's one of the most powerful insights you'll ever encounter. It's the beating heart of a brilliant book called Thinking in Systems, written by Donella Meadows, part scientist, part farmer, and part prophet for our times. She was the lead author of The Limits to Growth in the 1970s, a book that shook the world by showing us that our planet couldn't handle infinite growth. She saw patterns most people missed completely. She wrote this primer, Thinking in Systems, to give the rest of us her special vision. It was her life's work, distilled into something beautifully simple and strangely powerful. Tragically, she died before it was published, but her wisdom made it into the world anyway. It's become a quiet classic, a secret handshake among people who want to understand how things really work. And here's my promise to you. By the time we're done, you'll have gained something close to a superpower. You'll start seeing the invisible structures that shape your life, your community, your world. You'll understand why our best efforts to fix things often fail spectacularly, and why some problems, from personal habits you can't shake to global crises that seem hopeless, just keep coming back. Even better, you'll learn where the real leverage points are, those magical spots where a small, well-placed push can create massive, lasting change. You'll learn not to fight systems, but to dance with them. So let's start. Let's learn to see the slinky, not just the hand that moves it. Most of us move through life seeing only events. The stock market crashed. Your team won the championship. You caught a cold. A politician broke a promise. These are life's headlines. Exciting, dramatic, endlessly surprising. But seeing the world this way is like trying to understand the ocean by watching a single wave. It gives you almost no power to predict what's coming, and even less power to change anything. Donella Meadows invites us to look deeper. She shows us that beneath events, there are patterns of behavior. The stock market doesn't just crash. It cycles through booms and busts. Your team doesn't just win once. They're on a streak. You don't just catch one cold. You get sick every winter like clockwork. This is deeper understanding, seeing patterns, beats, seeing random events. But it's still not the whole picture. The real magic, the real power, lives one level below that, system structure. The structure is the set of rules, physical elements, and interconnections that create those patterns and events. Just like the slinky's coiled spring creates the bouncing, a system's underlying structure causes its own behavior. This is revolutionary. It means that, to a shocking extent, systems cause their own problems. Think about it. Political leaders don't single-handedly create economic booms or crashes. Those cycles are built into the structure of market economies. A competitor rarely causes a company to fail. The failing company's own structure creates the vulnerability that competitors exploit. The flu doesn't just attack you randomly. Your body creates the conditions for it to thrive. This can feel uncomfortable. It's so much easier to blame someone else. It's practically irresistible to point your finger and say, "It's their fault." But blaming external forces is like blaming your hand for the slinky's bounce. You're completely missing the point. The real power comes from understanding that the system creates its own behavior. Because if the problem lives in the structure, then the solution is restructuring, and that's something we can actually do. So what exactly is a system? It's simpler than you think. A system is just three things. 1. Elements, the visible, countable parts. For a football team, that's players, coaches, the ball, the field. For your digestive system, it's your teeth, stomach, intestines. 2. Interconnections, the relationships holding elements together. These are the game rules, the coach's strategy, how players communicate. In your body, it's food flow and chemical signals regulating digestion. Interconnections are often information flows, the signals telling different parts what to do. 3. A function or purpose. This is the most important and often the least obvious part. The football team's purpose is winning games. Your digestive system's function is nourishing your body. The key insight: a system is way more than the sum of its parts. A pile of players, a ball, and a field isn't a football team. It's just a mess. The interconnections and shared purpose bring it to life. And here's a secret: the most crucial part is often the purpose. But you can't always know a system's purpose from what it says. A government might claim its purpose is environmental protection, but if it spends zero money or effort on that goal, then protecting the environment isn't its real purpose. You figure out a system's purpose by watching its behavior. If a frog turns left to catch a fly, then turns right to catch another fly, its purpose isn't about turning directions. Its purpose is catching flies. Changing elements, like swapping out team players, usually has minimal effect. The team's still a team. But if you change the interconnections, the rules, say switching from football to basketball, you've got a completely different game. And if you change the purpose, from trying to win to trying to lose, you fundamentally transform the system, even if every element and rule stays identical. Once we start seeing the world as collections of systems, we need to understand their fundamental building blocks. And it all starts with something wonderfully simple: a bathtub. Imagine a bathtub full of water. The water in the tub is what we call a stock. A stock is an accumulation of something you can measure at any moment. It could be water in a tub, money in a bank, wood in a forest, or even something intangible, like your self-confidence. A stock is the system's memory. It tells you what's happened. Now, how does water level change? Through flows. Water from the faucet is an inflow. Water down the drain is an outflow. With just these simple ideas, stocks, inflows, and outflows, you can understand profound truths about how the world works. The first bathtub rule is simple. If inflow exceeds outflow, the stock rises. If outflow exceeds inflow, the stock falls. If inflow equals outflow, the stock stays steady, what we call dynamic equilibrium. Seems obvious, right? But our minds have a funny quirk. We focus on stocks, not flows. And when we think about flows, we fixate on inflows. We forget you can fill a bathtub just as effectively by plugging the drain as by turning on the faucet. A company can increase its workforce by hiring more people, increasing inflow, but it can also do it by reducing resignations and firings, decreasing outflow. A nation can get wealthier by building new factories, but often more cheaply by making existing factories last longer. We can extend our oil-based economy by discovering new oil fields, but we can achieve the same result by using less oil. Same principle, but one path gets ignored constantly. Another crucial bathtub lesson is about momentum. You can turn the faucet on or off instantly, but the water level, changes slowly. Stocks act as buffers, delays, shock absorbers. They create momentum. This is why things take so much longer than we expect. Populations can't grow overnight. Forests can't regrow in a year. Economies can't build infrastructure instantly, even with unlimited money. And once you have a society built around cars and oil furnaces, you can't switch to new energy overnight, even if oil prices skyrocket. The stock of old equipment has momentum. This momentum frustrates us, but it's also stabilizing. It gives us time to observe, experiment, and change course if policies aren't working. Wise people don't fight the delays caused by stocks. They understand and use them. Now here's where it gets really interesting. What controls the flows? What decides how fast the faucet runs or how open the drain is? In most important systems, the stock level itself affects the flows. This is the magic ingredient, the feedback loop. A feedback loop is a closed chain of cause and effect. It's when stock changes feedback to cause changes in the very flows filling or draining it. This is how systems begin controlling themselves, creating their own behavior. There are two kinds of feedback loops, and understanding them will change how you see everything. The first is the balancing feedback loop. This is stabilizing, goal-seeking. It keeps things in check. Think of body temperature. Too hot? Your body sweats to cool down. Too cold? It shivers to warm up. The goal: maintain around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. A balancing loop always tries bringing a stock to a desired level and keeping it there. It opposes whatever direction of change is imposed. A hot coffee on your desk is in a balancing loop with room temperature. It gradually cools, trying to match the room. The bigger the temperature difference, the faster it cools. Iced coffee does the opposite. It warms up. Same goal: eliminate the discrepancy. This structure creates stability and resistance to change. The second kind is the reinforcing feedback loop. This amplifies, self-multiplies. It creates snowball effects, vicious cycles, virtuous circles. A reinforcing loop enhances whatever direction of change is imposed. Classic example: money earning interest. More money in your account, the stock. More interest you earn, the inflow. That interest gets added back, so next year you earn even more. The more you have, the more you get. This is exponential growth's engine. Population works identically. More rabbits make more baby rabbits. More babies grow up to make even more babies. Reinforcing loops exist wherever systems can reproduce or grow as a fraction of themselves. They can be wonderful, like spreading great ideas, or practicing an instrument and improving, which makes you practice more. Or terrifying, like spreading viruses, eroding soil, or runaway arms races. Reinforcing loops create exponential growth. Our minds are notoriously bad at grasping how explosive that becomes. There's a handy rule, the rule of 70. To know how long something takes to double, divide 70 by its growth rate percentage. Money growing at 7% annually doubles in about 10 years. 70 divided by 7. Population growing at 2% annually doubles in 35 years. This simple math explains why small problems suddenly become overwhelming. In reality, these loops don't exist in isolation. They're tangled together in complex patterns, all pulling on the same stocks. A single stock, like population, has a reinforcing loop of births making it grow, and a balancing loop of deaths making it shrink. The population's behavior depends on which loop dominates. If birth rate exceeds death rate, the reinforcing loop dominates exponential growth. If death rate is higher, the balancing loop dominates, population declines. If they're equal, the loops balance, stable population. Really complex, surprising behaviors happen when dominance shifts. One loop controls for a while, then conditions change, and another takes over. This is key to understanding systems. Let's look at common system structures like animals in a zoo to see how these loops combine, creating behaviors we see daily. First, a system with two competing balancing loops. Think of your house thermostat. One balancing loop is the furnace, working to bring room temperature up to your setting. The other is heat leaking out, always trying to match cold outside temperature. These loops are in constant tug-of-war. On cold days, the furnace runs constantly just to counteract escaping heat. The heating loop dominates. But what if the house is poorly insulated, or the furnace too small? On very cold nights, outside temperature might drop so low, the cooling loop becomes stronger than the heating loop. The furnace runs full blast, but can't keep up. The room gets cold. Dominance has shifted. This structure teaches an important lesson. If you're maintaining a stock with a balancing loop, you must account for any other draining loops. Want your room at 68 degrees? Set the thermostat higher to compensate for constant heat loss. Want to pay off credit card debt? Pay more than new monthly charges. Overcome the interest constantly draining your progress. Now let's add a simple but powerful element, a delay. Imagine a car dealership. The owner wants a certain inventory, say enough for 10 days of sales. Simple balancing loop. Sales go up, inventory goes down. The owner sees the discrepancy and orders more cars to restore inventory. But reality has delays. First, a perception delay. The owner doesn't react to one day's sales. She waits a few days to confirm it's a real trend, not a random blip. Second, a response delay. She doesn't order everything at once. She spreads orders over several days cautiously. Third, a delivery delay. The factory needs time to process and ship cars. With these simple, realistic delays, system behavior changes completely. Say customer demand suddenly jumps 10%. At first, sales rise and inventory drops. The owner waits to perceive the trend. As inventory keeps dropping, she gets nervous and places bigger orders. But delivery delays mean cars don't arrive immediately. Inventory drops further, well below desired levels. Now she's really worried, placing even bigger orders. Finally, new cars start arriving. And they keep arriving, because all those panicked orders are now coming in. Suddenly, inventory doesn't just recover, it overshoots. Way too many cars on the lot. Seeing this, she panics again and cuts orders way back. But old orders are still in the pipeline, so she orders even less. Before she knows it, inventory's too low again. The result? Oscillations. Inventory swings up and down, overshooting and undershooting the goal, all because of delays. The owner isn't stupid. She's operating in a system with imperfect information and delayed action effects. Same reason you get scalded, then frozen in a shower with long pipes. A delay in a balancing loop almost always causes oscillation. Here's the counterintuitive part. What if the owner tried fixing the problem by reacting faster, shortening her perception and response delays? The oscillations would get worse. Faster reactions would just amplify the swings. The real solution, given the unchangeable delivery delay, is reacting more slowly. Being more patient, making smaller, more gradual adjustments. This is one of systems thinking's first, most humbling lessons. Sometimes moving faster just gets you into trouble faster. These simple systems give us foundation, but what happens when growth hits a limit? This is one of the most important archetypes. Limits to growth. Any system growing exponentially, driven by a reinforcing loop in a finite environment, will eventually hit a limit. That limit comes as a balancing loop slowing growth. Imagine an oil company discovering a huge new field, classic reinforcing loop, more capital rigs, refineries means more oil extracted, more oil means more profit means more capital investment. This is exponential growth's engine. But oil is non-renewable, finite stock. As they extract it, the stock decreases. As stock decreases, getting the next barrel becomes harder and more expensive. Oil's deeper, under less pressure. This creates a new balancing loop. As the resource depletes, capital efficiency drops, profits fall, investment slows, and eventually growth stops and reverses. What you see, classic boom and bust. The company's production grows exponentially, peaks, then collapses as the resource runs out and extraction costs overwhelm profits. Now the kicker. What if the company discovers the field's twice as big as originally thought? Or 4 times bigger, more time, right? Yes, but surprisingly little. Because of exponential growth's power, doubling the resource doesn't double the industry's lifetime. It only adds a few more years before peak and collapse. Exponentially growing quantities approach limits with shocking speed. The faster you grow, the harder you fall. The real choice in managing non-renewable resources isn't if they'll run out, but when. The choice is between getting very rich very fast or getting less rich but staying in business much longer. It all depends on how fast you turn that reinvestment reinforcing loop. The dynamic differs for renewable resources, like fish populations. Here, the resource stock can regenerate itself. It has inflow. But this inflow is also limited. Fish populations can only reproduce so fast. Imagine a fishing fleet. Same reinforcing growth loop as the oil company. More boats, more fish caught, more profit, more investment in boats. They're harvesting from fish stock. As long as harvest rate stays below fish regeneration rate, the system can be sustainable. But if the fleet grows too large, harvesting fish faster than they reproduce, fish stock declines. Now, several things can happen, all depending on feedback, strength, and speed. Best case, as fish stock declines, finding fish gets harder. Catch per boat drops, profits fall, fleet stops growing. The system finds sustainable balance with smaller but stable harvest. But what if technology intervenes? What if the fleet gets sonar to find the last schools, or giant nets catching anything? This technology weakens balancing feedback. Fishermen keep catching fish and making profit, even as fish population plummets. This is disaster's recipe. The system overshoots sustainable limits. The fleet keeps growing, fish population crashes, then suddenly the resource is gone. Industry collapses, and fish may never recover. The technology that was supposed to improve efficiency ends up destroying them. Classic case of high leverage, wrong direction. These stories of growth hitting limits aren't just about oil and fish, they're about any growing thing in a finite world. They lead us to common, difficult system traps, recurring structures producing persistent, frustrating problems. But once you see the structure, you can see the way out. One of the most famous is the tragedy of the commons. This happens when groups share limited renewable resources, like common pasture for cattle. Every herdsman thinks, what's the benefit of adding one more cow? The benefit is huge. He gets all the profit from that cow. The cost? Slight increase in overgrazing. But that cost is shared by everyone. so his individual cost is tiny. From a purely rational individual perspective, the only sensible move is adding another cow. And another. Problem is, every single herdsman makes the exact same rational calculation. They're all locked into a system compelling them to increase herds without limit, in a world that is limited. Result: pasture destruction and ruin for everyone. The tragedy arises from a missing feedback loop. The signal from resource condition back to user decisions is too weak. We see this trap everywhere. Overfishing oceans. Polluting atmosphere. Traffic jams clogging cities. Each driver thinks only of their own convenience, not the collective delay they're causing everyone. How do you escape the tragedy? 3 ways. 1. Educate and exhort. Appeal to people's morality. This can work in small, tight-knit communities, but often isn't enough with strangers. 2. Privatize the commons. Divide the resource so each user feels direct consequences of their actions. Overgraze your own plot? Only you suffer. This creates the missing feedback loop, but you can't privatize atmosphere or oceans. 3. Regulate the commons. What Garrett Hardin called mutual coercion, mutually agreed upon. Create rules, permits, quotas, or taxes, managing the resource. It limits individual freedom to abuse the commons, but protects everyone's freedom to use it sustainably. Traffic lights, parking meters, fishing quotas, all ways of managing commons. Another common trap is drift to low performance, the boiled frog syndrome. Story goes that if you drop a frog in boiling water, it jumps right out. But put it in cool water and slowly heat it, it'll sit there until it's cooked. This trap happens when we let standards be influenced by past performance, especially bad performance. Imagine a company whose sales are slipping. Goal was 1,000 units monthly. This month, only 800. Instead of working harder to reach 1,000, management says, well, things are tough. Let's adjust our goal to 850. Now there's a new, lower goal. When performance slips again to 700, they lower the goal again. The gap between goal and reality always shrinks, not because performance improves, but because the goal erodes. This creates a reinforcing loop heading downhill. Lower performance, lower goal. Lower goal, less effort. Less effort, lower performance. The system gradually, almost imperceptibly, slides into mediocrity. We see this with eroding product quality, declining public services, or personal goals, like jogging programs that just fade away. The way out: keep goals absolute, or even better, anchor them to past best results, not worst. Instead of letting bad performance drag standards down, let your best performance pull them up. This turns vicious cycles into virtuous ones. The better I do, the higher I'll aim. Then there's escalation. This is the I'll raise you one game. It happens when 2 or more competitors are locked in a reinforcing loop, where each one's goal isn't achieving an absolute standard, but simply being slightly ahead of the other. Arms races are the classic, terrifying example. Country A sees Country B build 100 missiles, so Country A decides it needs 110. Country B sees that, decides it needs 120. And on it goes, an exponential spiral of spending and fear, until one or both sides collapse. Each side blames the other, but reality is, the system structure itself drives the behavior. We see escalation in price wars, where companies cut prices for market share, forcing competitors to cut more until nobody makes money. In advertising, where ads get louder and brasher just to be noticed. In negative political campaigns. The only way out of escalation is stopping the game. One side can unilaterally disarm. hoping the other follows. Or, more commonly, both sides negotiate a new system with balancing loops controlling competition, like arms-controlled treaties. Close cousin to escalation is success to the successful, the rich get richer trap. This happens whenever competition winners are rewarded with means to win even more easily next time. This creates a reinforcing loop that, unchecked, leads to winners taking everything and losers being eliminated. Monopoly perfectly models this. Everyone starts equal, but the first player building a hotel gets huge advantage. They collect more rent, allowing them to buy more hotels, collecting even more rent. The more you have, the more you get. Game ends with one person owning everything. In the real world, this is the, quote, competitive exclusion principle. Two species can't survive in the exact same niche, competing for identical limited resources. One will always be slightly better, and over time, it'll take over all resources and drive the other to extinction. Same thing happens in markets. The company with slight edge can reinvest profits to become even more dominant, eventually driving competitors out. This is why, without antitrust laws, nearly every industry would trend toward monopoly. This trap does greatest damage, making the rich richer and poor poorer. Wealthy people afford better lawyers avoiding taxes, they give children better educations, they earn interest on money, while the poor pay it. Powerful reinforcing loop, creating staggering inequality. The way out: introduce balancing loops, leveling the playing field. Things like progressive taxes, inheritance taxes, or universal access to quality education and healthcare all attempt breaking the success to the successful cycle, giving everyone a chance. Finally, one of the most insidious traps, shifting the burden to the intervener, or more simply, addiction. This trap begins when there's a system problem, and instead of solving the root cause, we apply a quick fix addressing only the symptom. This quick fix is the intervener. Imagine a farmer whose soil is losing fertility. Long-term fundamental solution: improve soil health through crop rotation, composting, and sustainable practices. But that takes time and effort. Quick fix: apply chemical fertilizer. The fertilizer, the intervener, masks the symptom. Crop grows, problem seems solved. But the underlying problem, poor soil, is still there, actually getting worse, because the farmer's no longer doing things that would actually build soil health. The soil's own ability to support crops has atrophied. So next year the farmer needs even more fertilizer for the same result. This creates a reinforcing loop of dependency. The more the system relies on intervention, the weaker its own inherent problem-solving ability becomes, making it need intervention even more. This is the structure of all addiction, whether substance addiction, government addiction to subsidies, or society's addiction to cheap fossil fuels. The drug of choice seems to solve a problem short-term, but prevents us from addressing the real issue, slowly eroding our power to function without it. Breaking addiction is painful. It means finally confronting the real problem and going through withdrawal. The only true way out: focus on long-term fundamental solutions. Work on strengthening the system's own ability to care for itself, and gradually, or sometimes suddenly, remove the intervention. Understanding these traps is like having a minefield map. It helps you see danger before stepping on it. But what about navigating the world positively? How do we not just avoid traps but create better systems? This is where Donella Meadows gives us her most powerful gift, the list of leverage points. These are places to intervene in systems, ranked by power to create change. And the list is deeply counterintuitive. What we usually focus on has least power, and what we usually ignore has most. Let's work up the list. from least powerful to most powerful. At the very bottom, with least leverage, are numbers. These are parameters, constants, standards. Things like subsidies, taxes, minimum wage, or government program spending. This is where 99% of political debates happen. We fight endlessly over these numbers. But they rarely change fundamental system behavior. Changing players while keeping the same old system doesn't change much either. It's rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. A little higher are buffers, the size of stabilizing stocks. A large water reservoir is a bigger drought buffer than a small one. Large savings accounts buffer financial shocks. Increasing buffer size can stabilize systems, but it's often expensive and slow. Next are stock and flow structures, the physical plumbing. City road layout, factory design. These are hugely important, but very hard to change once in place. Leverage is in getting design right the first time. Then we have delays. As we saw, delay length can hugely affect system behavior. But like physical structures, many delays are inherent and can't easily change. Trees take as long as they take to grow. It's often easier to slow down change rates in the system, so delays don't cause so much trouble. Now we get to more powerful leverage points. The strength of balancing feedback loops. These keep systems in check. Strengthening these loops is powerful intervention. Think of laws ensuring prices reflect true pollution costs. Or Freedom of Information Acts, ensuring citizens have information holding governments accountable. These strengthen systems' self-correcting ability. Even more powerful is the gain of reinforcing feedback loops. These are engines of growth, explosion, and collapse. Slowing runaway reinforcing loops is one of the most powerful interventions. This is why slowing population and economic growth is so critical for sustainability. It gives all balancing loops in the system: technology, markets, adaptation, time to catch up. Similarly, weakening success to the successful loops through things like progressive taxes is high leverage intervention. Higher still is the structure of information flows. Who has access to what information and when? Simply providing new information to a system part that didn't have it can change everything. Remember the Dutch houses where putting electric meters in front halls, where people could see them, cut electricity use by 30%? That's a new information flow. Cheap, simple, incredibly effective. Next up, rules of the system, incentives, punishments, constraints. Presidents can only serve 2 terms. 3 strikes, and you're out. Power over rules is real power. Want to understand deepest system malfunctions? Pay attention to rules, and to who has power changing them. Even more powerful than rules is the power of self-organization. This is a system's ability to change itself, evolve, create new structures and rules. In nature, it's called evolution. In human society, it's social revolution or technological advance. Systems that can self-organize are incredibly resilient. They can survive almost any change by changing themselves. Encouraging experimentation, diversity, and freedom enhances self-organization. It means letting go of control, which can be scary, but it's where true innovation and resilience are born. Now we're near the top. The second most powerful leverage point is the goal of the system. As we said, the goal is the ultimate direction setter. Change the goal, you change behavior of every system part as it realigns serving the new goal. A company whose goal is simply maximizing quarterly profit behaves very differently from one whose goal is creating lasting value for customers, employees, and community. A society whose goal is maximizing GNP will produce GNP. It won't produce justice, sustainability, or happiness unless those are defined as the goal. So what could possibly be more powerful than the system's goal? The most powerful leverage point of all is the paradigm, the shared set of beliefs and assumptions from which the system arises. The paradigm is the great, unstated agreement about how the world works. Growth is good. Nature is a resource to be exploited. You can own land. These are the ideas creating our systems. Ancient Egyptians built pyramids because they shared a paradigm about the afterlife. We build skyscrapers because we share a paradigm about downtown real estate value. Changing a paradigm is the most powerful thing you can do to change a system. It's what Copernicus did showing Earth wasn't the universe's center. What Einstein did showing matter and energy are interchangeable. Paradigm change is difficult because societies resist challenges to deepest beliefs more than anything. But it's not slow or expensive. It can happen in a millisecond. Just a click in the mind, a new way of seeing. And that leads to the final, ultimate leverage point. Number 1 on the list, the power to transcend paradigms. This is the ability to realize no paradigm is true. That every worldview, including your own, is just a limited model of an infinitely complex universe. It's freedom to choose your paradigm, to not be imprisoned by any single way of seeing. It's letting go into not knowing, into what some traditions call enlightenment. This is where systems thinking ultimately leads us. It starts with a simple mechanical toy, a slinky, and ends at the doorstep of deepest human wisdom. It teaches us we can't control the world. We can't predict it with perfect certainty. The illusion of control is just that, an illusion. So if we can't control systems, what can we do? We can dance with them. Dancing with a system means getting the feel for its rhythm. It means watching how it behaves, learning its history. It means exposing your own mental models to daylight, and being humble enough to admit when they're wrong. It means honoring and distributing information and using language carefully. It means paying attention to what's truly important, not just what's easy to measure. It means going for the good of the whole, not just one part. It means staying a learner, embracing error, and celebrating complexity. Living in a world of systems requires more than just analytical minds. It requires our full humanity, intuition, compassion, creativity, and courage. The future can't be predicted, but it can be envisioned and brought lovingly into being. We can't impose our will on systems, but we can listen to what they tell us and discover how their properties and our values can work together, creating something far better than we could ever create alone. That is the dance, and it's a dance we're all part of, whether we know it or not. This book's gift is that it teaches us the steps. So what do we take away from all this? For me, the most powerful lesson in thinking in systems is a profound shift in perspective. It's the shift from blaming to understanding. It's the move from seeing a world of isolated events and individual actors to seeing a world of interconnected structures and dynamic patterns. When you're stuck in traffic, your first instinct is getting angry at the driver ahead. But systems thinking teaches you to ask a different question. What is the structure of this transportation system that produces traffic jams every single day? When you see a problem that never goes away, whether in your own life or in society, you stop looking for a villain to blame and start looking for feedback loops, delays, and eroding goals holding that problem in place. This shift doesn't just make you a better problem solver, it makes you a more compassionate and humble person. You start seeing that people's behavior, including your own, is often a product of the system they're in. As Donella Meadows puts it, if you put good people in a bad system, you get bad results. You have to change the system. So how can you start applying this superpower in your own life? Starting today. Here are a few simple things to try. First, the next time you encounter a recurring problem, a frustration that keeps popping up, stop and ask yourself, what's the system? Instead of who's to blame, ask, what structure here is producing this behavior? Just asking that question can change everything. Second, try identifying one simple stock and its flows in your daily life. It could be your energy level. The inflow is sleep, food, and rest. The outflows are work, stress, and exercise. What feedback loops are controlling those flows? Maybe the less energy you have, the more coffee you drink, giving you short-term boost but leading to crashes later, creating a vicious cycle. Just seeing that loop can be the first step to changing it. And third, listen for systems language. When you hear people talking, are they stuck at the event level? Or are they talking about patterns and structure? Start using systems words yourself. Talk about reinforcing loops, balancing loops, and delays. When you can name something, you can see it. And when you can see it, you can begin to change it. Thinking in systems is more than just a book about models and diagrams. It's a guide to a more effective, and, I believe, a more graceful way of living in a complex world. It teaches you to see the big picture, act with wisdom, and find courage to intervene where it matters most. That was a summary of Thinking in Systems, a primer by Donella H. Meadows. We've covered the core ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. The real magic happens when you decide to take the journey yourself. The book is filled with stories, examples, and depths of wisdom we've only been able to touch on. It's in the quiet moments of reading that a particular idea might click, and you'll see your own world in completely new light. This summary is your invitation. If anything we've talked about has sparked your curiosity, I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. It's not just a book to be read, it's a lens to be looked through, one that can genuinely change the way you see everything. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please take a moment to subscribe and share it with someone who might need to see the world a little differently. Each week, we dive into another life-changing book from the libraries of the world's most successful and thoughtful people. Let's keep learning and keep growing together.